What's up, everybody? Welcome back to ATQ Tubes. Sorry about the hiatus last week. I was dealing with a cold, there was Halloween, the Ducks didn't play last week. I was dealing with a lot of crap, but now I am back. Oregon takes on Stanford on Thursday night in Palo Alto. Should be a very, very big game, one that essentially decides the fate of Oregon's season. I think the schedule gets easier after this one. First, let's talk a little BCS. Florida State, after their win over Miami, back up to number 2 in the BCS standings behind Alabama. Oregon sits at number 3. However, the Ducks, should they win in Palo Alto on Thursday night, would look to jump back up to number 2 in next week's BCS standings and probably hold that level until the end of the year, should Alabama, Florida State, and Oregon all stay undefeated. For what it's worth, I think we need to start having a conversation about whether Alabama really deserves to just sit at that number 1 spot and have teams battle it out for number 2. The Crimson Tide, I think, are getting a lot of the benefit of the doubt. They're the 2-time defending national champs, and so I think the narrative and what a lot of people are thinking is, if you want to beat them, somebody's got to take it from them. And I think that's a valid claim to have. I just don't think Alabama's been the best team in college football this year. Their really one game where they were super impressive offensively was against Texas A&M, putting up 49 points. But Texas A&M has a bad defense. There's no other way around. I think Texas A&M is one of the most overrated teams in college football this year, and their defense is not good. They give up 31 points to Rice. If you take out the scoring from the Alabama game, they're still averaging over 27 points a game allowed. It's not a very good defense, and it shouldn't be that surprising that Alabama put up 49. I think the more surprising thing is that Texas A&M was able to put up 42, meaning that this Alabama defense is not perfect. They have been lights out since that game, but I think a good offense, and Florida State and Oregon both have those, can get to the Crimson Tide defense. And of the 3 teams, I think Alabama's got the least impressive win, which was that sleepwalking, lazy win over Colorado State 31-6, where the Rams were kind of still around in the game in the second half. It didn't really feel like they were going to come back and pull the upset, but Alabama just really didn't pay attention in that one. Granted, they still won by 25, but it didn't really look very good. In the AddictedToQuack.com Quack poll that we release every Wednesday, on my ballot this week, I'm going to have Florida State number 1, Oregon number 2, Alabama number 3. So, something to think about. Looking ahead to Oregon's matchup with Stanford, this has been a battle. Stanford was the only team to beat Chip Kelly's Oregon teams more than once, in 2009 and last year in 2012. And last year really was the only instance that Oregon's offense was really stopped in that 17-14 overtime loss. This Stanford team is not as good as the one last year. They lost some pieces on defense. Chase Thomas in particular was a big piece that they lost. He's now playing for, I believe, the Atlanta Falcons. And Stanford just lost Ben Gardner for the season with a torn pectoral. That is going to be a significant blow. He's really one of the linchpins on that defensive front. And it's going to be interesting to see whether Oregon attacks whoever replaces Gardner on the defensive line. On offense for Stanford, they're going to want to run the ball, and they're going to want to run the ball using their power and their strength and their depth at tight end and at offensive line. We saw that a couple weeks ago against UCLA, where the Cardinal came in and they put extra tight ends in the game. They put offensive linemen in the game as tight ends, and they just ran the ball down UCLA's throat. I think Tyler Gaffney went for 170-something yards in that one. And I think they would look to do that again to try and neutralize the speed of Oregon's defense. Now, how does a speedy defense beat a strong offensive line? I think they do it in 2 ways. That's mixing up rushes and mixing up coverages. And Nick Aliotti is very, very good at doing that. We have athletic defensive ends that can drop into coverage, which allows us to blitz some linebackers and send people from different areas and put up some exotic looks, whether that's stunts on the line, having people switch around. Because if you run right at the Stanford defense and try and take them head on, chances are they're going to win, and they're going to control the line of scrimmage, and they're going to win some battles, eat some clock, and score some points. The other way you do that is you simply outnumber them. Ty Montgomery, really this year the only big threat in the passing game. They don't have guys like Zach Ertz or Coby Fleener or Levine Toilolo out there on the edges that can make those big plays in the pass game other than Montgomery. And Kevin Hogan isn't throwing that much. He's only averaging about 13.5 pass attempts per game, which is not many. They're going to want to run the ball. I expect Oregon to drop down in the box and put the responsibility on the linebackers to be able to diagnose plays quickly. Stanford really likes to play off the play action for their deep passes, and I would expect leaving those back four, those secondary guys, that talented secondary, on essentially an island and being able to take care of the wide receivers one-on-one and letting the front seven crash down and stop the run and force Kevin Hogan to really put the game on his back, which is something he hasn't had to do yet this year. Stay tuned to AddictedToQuack.com and the ATQ Tube all week for news and analysis about your Oregon Ducks. For AddictedToQuack.com, this is Takimoto. Go Ducks. We'll see you on Wednesday.